I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just
got it.
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Mars?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Done.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor to the reverend and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different than you. Me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Thank goodness. My goodness, did you see the rain? Did you see that rain last night? Thank you, Lord. I was talking with Cynthia Brooks this morning over at the B. Gaddy Family Center on Chester Street. And she said, thank God that she wasn't, thank God that she didn't have to sleep outside in that rain. You know, a lot of times we don't think about how fortunate we are. If you have access to this internet thing and, you know, you're blessed. You got lights, you're blessed. You got running water, you're blessed. You got clothes to wear, you're blessed. There are people, black people around the world, and all kinds of other people, Latino, what have you, who would die to be in our shoes. But we are blessed. So thank you, Lord, for helping us to make it through the night. It was a flood watch until 2 a.m. and that rain was coming down. And we need the rain. But just thank God for those of us who didn't have to sleep outside in that rain. We're going to get to our guest this morning, Mr. Adrian Harpool. Mr. Harpool gave me one of my first contracts when I first started my business, and I will never, ever forget about it. How you doing there, Mr. Harpool? Good morning.
I'm doing fine, Mr. Glover. Thank you for having me on. And I'm glad to have, if in any small way that contract led you to get some of the fuel and continued your trajectory to where you are today. I'm glad to have done that. Yes, sir.
You know, that's the whole story behind these Black Wall Street Awards. I was just getting started in business, and my dad said to me, God rest his soul, he said, Donnie, if you get out there and try, somebody might see you and they might help you, but you will never know if you never try. So when I see people, you know, starting off their business, what's his name? Jim Peterson sent a young man. He pretty much nominated him for a Black Wall Street Award. Young man, he has about 25. Brandon Clayton. You know, we jumped at the opportunity. One, we get to get a plaque on his wall, but two, more importantly, you know, passing on that shot of hope. What you know about the shot of hope, Mr. Harpool?
Man, that's it is it's critical. I mean, it's a turning point. I mean, you know, well, like COVID boosters, we need multiple shots of hope. there are all kinds of times when we need that extra boost because you know we're not always you know able to sustain ourselves, you know, mentally, spiritually, or whatever through some of the trials that we have on our own, and so those I would say incremental shots of boosts of hope, or shots of hope is what keeps us going. Let's put it that way.
You know, being an entrepreneur is no easy route. I think in my 21 years there, about 4 times, I was like, man, maybe I should just go get a 9 to 5. And my God, trying to maintain a relationship, woo. You can't relate to that, can you?
I can clearly relate. Just yesterday, I was hosted an event with Governor Moore, and you know he gave a very inspirational talk. But in the course of his talk about his commitment to minority businesses and how he wants his administration to be accountable, he shared that he was creating a new position within his government as an ombudsman for the minority business program. So when people have problems and challenges in that environment and need somebody to intercede for them, to be an advocate, and to in some kinds negotiate settlements or outcomes for that. He mentioned that, and someone said to me immediately after, "Hey, that sounds like you. Sounds like a job you ought to get." And for a brief moment, I thought, I wonder what that pays. but I didn't allow that moment to last long.
Where does that, first of all, I want to acknowledge your son there, Ian Harpool of Black Wall Street honoree, but more importantly, a fine young man.
Indeed.
Who I see from time to time in the community. I think I saw him on a scooter the last time I saw him, but getting it done. No, I know. Maybe I saw him come through the community, but maybe the last time I saw him was at the press conference we had that we covered at Billy Murphy's office. He had his gear with him, his recording gear. So shout out to your son, Ian. Good morning, Ian. But tell me about that entrepreneurial journey. How long have you been in business for yourself? I remember 21st Century Group. I remember you had the anti-smoking campaign. That was the first. That
was a definite milestone. I mean, 2002, I think that might have been.
Yeah, it was.
And to get a $14 million contract at that stage in our business was pretty substantial with the state health department. And that was also under an administration that was favorable to us, that Glendenning administration. It didn't last long, though, I have to say, but nonetheless.
But you employed people, and I'm proud to say you employed Black people.
We hired 20 people to work on that on that contract, and we're fortunate to keep a number of them around after that. In fact, Willie Flowers, some of you all know, or you know for sure, who's prominent with NACP and now is at the Public Defender's Office, the State of Maryland Public Defender's Office. But Willie made he migrated to Baltimore from DC as a result of us hiring him to work on that. And a number of people that have gone on to do some good things and are all over the landscape. We were able to bring on our team to carry out that work. And it was a good building block for us in those days.
Mr. Harpool, I've returned back to Morgan State University to finish up my master's. They have a program called Morgan Completes You.
Mm-hmm. I've heard about that.
And the past 4 weeks have been just awe-inspiring. But I'm reminded of something I learned early on in the program over 20 years ago that's so very relevant still today. It's called political economy. Political economy is the interrelationship of politics and economics. And I was reading something yesterday as it relates to my capstone project, where just that, you know, you and I have been involved in a number of political campaigns, but would you agree that if the politics does not translate into economics, then we have absolutely nothing?
Well, yeah, I mean, and it does translate in economics. It just depends
Oh,
on.
I mean, for us.
Well, it just depends on which end of that stick you get. So,
I mean, that's the whole point of us working with this person, that person.
Yeah.
We expect them to bring back the bacon. And this one particular piece I read talked about the entrepreneur. You and I, in our community, the Black entrepreneur, we are the biggest risk takers out there. The very nature of what we do is risk taking. But it also, as challenging as it is, there's a certain liberation. There's a certain freedom that comes with that.
Indeed. Yesterday evening, as we were debriefing on this event yesterday, we had with 400 plus people at Bowie, and we have a similar event coming up in October 24th. I'll be sure to send information to you to share with your audience about that. It'll be at Coppin State, because we were very intentional in hosting these events at HBCUs. But debriefing from that event yesterday, someone asked me about this entrepreneurial thing, and they said, "Oh, well, you get to call your own shots, set your own schedule, all that sort of stuff." And I told them that comes at an expense, of course, because the same token, unlike some of those folks listening right now who have a job that does a direct deposit, back in the day, used to give you checks, right? You get a check on your desk when you came into work. It's been 40 years since I knew about that, but
40?
About 40, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, but you get, people get the check on the desk and then you go cash your check, and now it's direct deposit. So, for some people, every 2 weeks, they just look at their bank account or check their online banking and see that their deposit's been made. In this entrepreneurial space, that is not necessarily the case. In fact, I have someone teasing the other day, was like, "Oh, yeah, it's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday." I'm like, Friday doesn't mean anything other than me that it's the day after Thursday and the day before Saturday. Because my week doesn't always end on Friday, my work week. And certainly I don't anticipate any particular change in my financial, my financial wherewithal, my financial situation, based on the fact that it's Friday. Sometimes it's very coincidental that there will be a check run, or there'll be a deposit that shows up on a Friday, but that's only coincidental. So
a check could come 3 o'clock in the morning,
or
an electronic transfer
on a Wednesday or Tuesday, seldom on a Saturday or Sunday. But I guess my point is that it's a definite kind of journey that one, as you said earlier, it's not for the weak. You have to have a constitution that will allow you to I won't say suffer that, but certainly to digest that medicine in heavy doses, and certainly there are occasions when one says, "Man, it would be nice to have something where every 2 weeks," especially during COVID, when people didn't even have to go to the office. A lot of them were just at home doing what we're doing now, Zooming and doing whatever they did, remodeling their kitchens and writing their next great novel, or studying yoga, whatever else it is, on their employer's time, or in some cases on the government's time. But entrepreneurs have to grind. It's like Rick Ross said, every day I'm hustling. You can't sleep on this stuff and expect there's going to be anything on the other end.
A friend of mine, Alexis Coach, said you got to watch it when your friends over 50 start quoting rap lyrics.
I feel you now. Well, I'll give you.
How did?
Well, I'm gonna quote another one for you real quick, which I know you appreciate and you've heard, and some of your listeners. But they said everybody in your circle ain't in your corner. So that's
Yes,
one.
sir.
That's one to chew on. But you were mentioning politics, and I will make the point that as we look at this Supreme Court and recently what happened as a result of affirmative action, elections have consequences, and so we need to be mindful of that, because the people we elect, as you said earlier about people bringing home the bacon or doing any of that kind of stuff, elections have consequences. So we have to be really mindful about the people we elect, because their orientation, their mindset, their background will say a lot about what they can deliver, will deliver. And also what's important is who supports them, where their resources come from. We know about a lot of campaigns where people are heavily supported by various sectors of the community or industries, that will then rely heavily on them to come through with the promises that they made to get those contributions. And consequently, the question is, do those promises, or do the deliverables in those cases, do they align with our needs? Do they align with with our philosophies, with our politics? And so we really need to define our own politics, and then we need to find candidates that reflect those politics, and we need to support them. And I would say not just supporting them as in going out to vote for them that day.
That's so minuscule in the big scheme of things. It's tough enough. You and I have worked on many getting people to register to vote thing, getting people out to vote. But that's like 1% of the big picture.
Right. Yeah. If you didn't shape some expectations, and when I say you, if we as a community did not shape expectations for candidates around what we expect and what we demand, quite honestly, because politicians in effect work for us. They're our employees. And people oftentimes forget that. They are our employees, and so they're there to do our bidding. They're there on our behalf in whatever body it is that they represent us in, whether that's the state whether that's the U.S. Congress, the state General Assembly, locally at the city council, at the mayor's office, or wherever else it is. They're there to do our bidding. They're there because we put them there to carry out, to establish and move policies, to create programs, to fund or to allocate funds for specific things that are related to the interests that our community has. And if we are not doing that, then it's on us. And I'll liken that for some of those of you who are there, those of your listeners that are entrepreneurs. But basically, if you hire a staff person and give them no requirements, I don't tell you when to show up. We have legislators and people who don't show up to vote on bills, right? And you can look at their voting record and see when they, how many votes they missed. What they voted for and against is important, clearly. But what you also want to hone in on is the votes that they missed, because sometimes there could be a very critical issue at stake, and their failure to be there, their failure to vote in the direction that we need them to on critical legislation. Again, elections have consequences. Those bills either pass or don't pass. And sometimes it's very strategic when we talk again about the interests that support them financially. Sometimes it's not a legislator voting for something. It's their absence from the vote that can have the impact that a particular funder or supporter has compelled them to do. So someone it'd be real convenient if you weren't there on Friday for the vote on whatever it is that impacts my business or my industry. And sometimes that's easier for a legislator to deliver than to show up for the vote and then vote for or against something that, again, may go afoul or not in alignment with their community's interests. So this voting stuff is this election stuff is real. It's real stuff. It's not, this ain't video games. This is it ain't Minecraft or what else, some of those other games that they have that I don't really know about, but it's not one of those things. It's the real deal. And as a result of what again happens in those settings, in those council meetings, in those General Assembly meetings or committee meetings, in the mayor's office, in the governor's office, what happens there affects us immensely.
Mr. Harpool, can you briefly take me back to the day you became an entrepreneur?
That's probably 8 or 9, less than that, maybe, I suppose.
Was it a paper route?
I didn't do the paper route thing. I do at one point later on. I had one for a brief time with somebody. I shared one with somebody else, and I realized they weren't doing their share of the delivery, and so we weren't making money. So I stopped that partnership. I started out initially going door to door with my neighbors with something that was way ahead of its time. And I say that because, when people laughed when I came to them, and then a couple of people, they, a couple of them humored me and gave me some little small token just for showing my
guts,
right? But what I was selling was what I called pet insurance. And so I had neighbors in my neighborhood who had dogs and had cats. And I did not. And so basically what I agreed to do was that if you die, I will take your dog or your cat and keep it for you, keep it, feed it, walk it, do whatever. Or if you get sick and you can't walk your dog, I'll come and walk your dog, or I will come and feed your dog or your cat. and at 8 years old, I thought that was something that, because we had some elderly people in my community, and I was like, hey, these people are going to die or something. And they love Fido to death. They really love, Frisky or whatever the cat's name is. And I think that they probably want to know what would happen if they, if something happens to them. And it may have actually been an incident that happened maybe with one of the neighbors who did pass. And as a result, there was some question about what was going to happen to their pet. So I thought, hey, this makes sense. And I went door to door in my neighborhood, asking people, trying to get them to buy pet insurance. And had a few of them just said, oh, you what, boy, you something else is what they said. But boy, you something else, and some of them gave me back in those days, someone gave you a quarter or something was really, was money. Because we used to hustle money at the supermarket, just carrying people's bags, to the car.
But wait, who put that in you? Mom, dad, grandma?
I had an aunt actually who I think really inspired me more toward entrepreneurship, because she was the ultimate entrepreneur. This sister, she was ancient when I was born. She was my great aunt, and she had worked for, quote unquote, back those days, worked for white folks, and she worked for some judges and people like that. She was a housekeeper or whatever with them. And when she got too old to do that, she came home. Right. And she maintained relationships with those people. And so back in those days, people didn't go to laundry. They didn't go to dry cleaners as frequently as they did now. Then professional men had their shirts laundered. And so my aunt had created a laundry service at her home. And these doctors and lawyers would come, or their wives would come weekly and drop off their laundry. Mainly just shirts, wasn't their underwear and stuff, but they would, would bring their husband's shirts or their shirts, and she would wash them and she would iron them, wash and starch. And that was a big thing. The starch was the important element. Starch them, and then she would press them and fold them very, meticulously, and have them waiting for them when they came to pick them up several days later.
That's a key element of Black Wall Street. That's a basic fundamental building block of Black Wall Street right there.
Yep. So she did that. In addition to that, she had a very vast garden of all kinds of fruits and vegetables. I mean, peaches and apples. She had white and yellow grapes. I mean, white and red grapes, and cabbage and collards and all kinds of stuff like that. So she grew that stuff and used as much as she wanted to, but other people, neighbors, would come and buy stuff from her. Her house was next door to a car wash, and the car wash guys it was in a residential area, so there were no stores or restaurants nearby, and she would actually prepare lunch, and they would come and buy lunch from her. She would hot dogs and hamburgers and whatever. And I mean, so this sister was just every kind of which way. And Donnie, I'm gonna tell you what really the nexus of that entrepreneurship and politics came together. And my first exposure to politics was through that aunt, who was Republican, by the way, at that time. Most blacks were, or a lot of blacks were. When elections were held, and remember I told you she had worked with these judges and judges and lawyers and people, right? So she had a hookup so that when elections day came, her house was used as a polling place. So we would my cousins and I would be employed by her to clean up she had a really large living room, a real big parlor and front porch, clean all that stuff. We moved all the furniture out of those rooms into other rooms in the house and cleared those rooms. And then these people would come, because I had no idea. I mean, I'm talking about now, 9, 10 years old. People would come and they would put voting booths in her living room. And then on election day, the election workers would be posted out in front of her house in either direction at whatever the law required distance. And they'd have those signs, don't come past this point. And people from the neighborhood would literally come in her house and cast their votes on election day. And she got paid for this, of course, because one of the judges or somebody she knew was engaged or part of the election board, and they had designated her house a polling place. So when I talk about people having hustles, her sister made money every which kind of way.
All year long.
But it also exposed me to, again, the electoral process at a very early age in trying to understand what this was and why these people were here and why she had the juice, because people would ask her who to vote. Her name was Bertha Dunn. Bertha, who you voting for? Who should we be voting for? And she literally would tell people, her neighborhood, as many of the people now in our communities around Baltimore and other places, there are those kind of unofficial community leaders, but influencers, they call them now, right, on social media. Those influencers would tell people, and they knew because she was connected to the judge and she was the person who, and if they thought enough of her to put the polling place in her house, clearly somebody thought she knew something. And they would ask her for advice about who to vote for. So that's where I saw the connection between politics and entrepreneurship.
So that's a great segue into yesterday. Who were you hanging with?
The governor. And the treasurer was there as well.
Derek Davis.
Derek Davis was there as well.
So your auntie, wherever she is smiling on you.
Clearly she is. And beyond that connection, but the fact that I'm hustling. Because when I get off this call, I'm going to be doing the next thing.
So what happened yesterday? What was the event?
So
I was real tempted. I learned about it a little late, but I was very tempted into driving down.
Yeah, I didn't compel you because I knew we were going to be doing this event at Coppin, and I thought that would be probably closer to where your audience.
I love PG. You see Irvin Reed and all them cats from PG on here.
Yeah, that's true. So back in February, one of the first acts that the governor executed was a executive order compelling the state agencies to be accountable for their MBE or minority business enterprise spending.
Now, was this just rhetoric? Is this something we've seen before? Is some teeth in this?
Well, there's teeth in it. That's why I mentioned earlier that he's creating a position for an ombudsman to really get in there and be available, so that people who have challenges can have somebody to advocate on their behalf. But the point I was making is that, so he, he's repeatedly talked about this, and he says, when you have a goal, and if you were serious about a goal, then you behave in a certain way. And I think, from what I understand, like the average, so for the 29% that
state goal,
last year the average agency did 6%.
6% on 29%, almost what, a fifth, 1/5 of the goal.
Correct.
And we got to credit Martin O'Malley for pushing the goal to 29%. C4, other people were a part of that, but our people that we have supported in one way or another. So this is, and that's going back 15, 20 years.
It's going back that many years, yeah. And so the point is, you have this goal, and people are not taking it seriously. And
people who run these agencies, people who make those decisions.
Correct. And largely because they haven't been held accountable by the governor or anybody above them, right? So you have the goal, the agency has the goal, they meet it or don't meet it. You have people coming in, about this, where people come in and ask for waivers because they say we can't find, nobody to no African-American, women-owned, Asian-owned, or whatever people to do this particular task.
They
So we don't want a goal at all on this particular contract because there's nobody out there that can meet it. In other cases, they will get an agreement to reduce the goal from the 29% on the front end and say we only 17% is all we can do. Derry Davis told a very compelling story yesterday about his situation, about an agency coming to him in the middle of the public works meeting, and they brought this particular contract in, and it was supposed to be, the 29% goal. They came back and said they couldn't do it. The best they could do was 6% or something like that, 8%. I think it was 8%. And, he said the meeting was going forward, and he decided to stop it. He says, no, no, they can't. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. And so.
And that's what we need him to do. That's what we need. The treasurer, the governor. Who's the other one?
The other one's the comptroller.
Comptroller. Learman. We need them to regularly
go back to the drawing board.
Reject those things.
Go back to the drawing board and come back to me when you can meet your initial goal. He said that, so he said whoever that contractor was determined at that point, okay, looks like
they're not playing.
Right, they're not playing. You gave them 2 weeks to come back in 2 weeks in the next meeting, and otherwise this thing's gonna go. Otherwise, I'm gonna have this put back out to bid again, right? Because this is a company that had already gotten the contract, had already won the contract, but they were coming in with this minimal minority participation.
Faking.
So he said 2 weeks later they came back at 25%.
Damn Skippy. You have not because your ass not.
He said they came back with a 29% MBE goal. And he said, I want a minimum of 20%. They came back with 25. And he said, so why couldn't you have done that the first time? Now, 25 still ain't 29.
Well, it's a hell of a lot better than 6.
Right. And so that kind of underscores the tone of the event that we had yesterday. The governor had the heads of, so we had 40 departments participate in this event with an opportunity for them to meet directly with minority contractors and or people who were just getting started and wanted to understand what this whole thing was about. So we had 40 departments represented. We had 7 of the department secretaries there who wanted, again, to demonstrate their seriousness and be held accountable. So that's really what this event was about. We did a number of other things. The very dynamic aspect and presentation of this, which will be even expanded for Coppin, was around using AI in preparing bids for government contracts. So there's a brother named Julius Weems, who's a consultant and has been involved working with major Fortune 500 companies around AI. And one of the things that we talked about in that setting, and it's almost embarrassing the number of people who opted out of that particular workshop to do something else because
they were intimidated, maybe?
Intimidated. That was it. Are you afraid of AI? And some people say, oh, that's white people stuff, or that's what. And the reality of it is that
man,
AI,
you kidding me? You kidding me?
Well, one of the things he brought up, and it was an illustration he used, which was really very effective. He said, he asked people to raise their hands. How many of you have said when you were young that you'd never get in the car with a stranger? Right. Now, Baltimore's we might be a little bit different because we all know about hacks, right? So people will be just, right, whoever will stop and get me. But anyway, he said, a lot of people raised their hands. And he said, so how many of you have an Uber app?
Whole room.
And so he said, so you changed your mind about that.
At some junction.
And that's all the AI does. That's one of the integrations of AI. We use AI on a lot of different things. We are GPS, all those kinds. So
we already use it. Oh, how about this? They already using AI on us.
Right. Well, of course. And that's the point. So the point is, if we don't embrace this and we don't leverage the power of this stuff, we're going to be left behind. It's going to be like, still having a landline phone when everybody else has got cell phones.
And this is not just black people. This is all people. All people.
But they very deliberately, this event, and this was not minority as in, we didn't have, and I have some really very good and close Latino friends and business partners, actually. And one of them is a little pissed off at me right now. We did not invite Latino businesses. We did not invite Asian businesses. We did not invite women businesses that were not African-American owned. This was about black business.
We salute you, Mr. Harpool, unapologetically so, sir. We always accommodating somebody else. My ancestors broke their necks.
Right.
Broke their necks, busted their butts. We always looking out for somebody else. Charity starts at home. As a matter of fact, do they invite us to their stuff?
There's a Latino business conference coming up next week, and you asked me if anybody sent you a notice about that to promote. Probably not. So that is very intentional, and the governor spoke to that. And one of the things, and I guess in full disclosure, because there may be people here who would know about this and others who wouldn't, and I know that you're aware. I took time off on my business over a year ago, to work on the governor's campaign as a consultant. And I ain't drink no Kool-Aid, so and all that. But and I didn't come quickly. It took me 5 months to decide to work with him, with a number of people trying to influence my decision. But I did, and I'm glad that I did. But one of the things that allowed me to do that, or enabled me to do that, was I requested a one-on-one meeting with him prior to making a decision, because I didn't feel like I really knew him well enough to commit myself, or my brand, if you will, to his campaign. And in that conversation, I asked him, I said, are you willing to run on the platform of being Maryland's first black governor? And he said, of course I am. I said, no, I don't mean of course. I mean, are you really willing to do that? And I said, because I've been in 2 of these dances previously with African-American candidates who were, gubernatorial candidates. And one of them had some of your credentials, which was a Rhodes Scholar. We know who that was. The other one was a rec or a Middle East war veteran, which you are, and those are two things that you tout. But neither of them, in my recollection, in any of their campaign speeches or rhetoric or material, said anything about wanting to be noted that they wanted to be a candidate that was running to be the first Black governor. And he said, you have my assurance about that. And so I will tell you that when this legislation,
what does that mean to you? Do you mean, are you suggesting that not just Black on, not using Blackness,
mm-hmm, right,
usurping Blackness for the camera, but really Black?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Black. I'm gonna go further than that. Blackity black, right? Because let's be honest. I mean, I was there. I saw Jesse Jackson's photo. I saw the camera panning on him on election night when Barack Obama was elected. Jesse standing there in Chicago, in Grant Park, in tears. It's an iconic vision, right? And that's after Jesse, as we know, had discounted Barack and said some stuff when he thought the mic was off in an interview he had, right? And used the N-word in referring to Barack. And I'm also will disclose that I was a member of Jesse Jackson's campaign staff when he ran the first time in '84, along with Donna Brazile and some of the other folks there that now many are very notable because they wanted to continue to do that work. That wasn't what I chose to do. But my point is, we were all proud when Barack got elected, and many of us stood out in the freezing cold to see it, and then the freezing cold the second time to see it, right? But Barack Obama, while everybody will say and note that he was the first Black president, his policies and programs did not deliberately, unapologetically reflect that. And so we had him in the White House for 8 years, and HBCUs did not get fully funded. Marijuana did not get legalized. Criminal records did not get expunged. He did not even, to my recollection, do a mass clemency, right? Which almost every president that I've known.
Trump ready to forgive himself.
Right. That's right. But almost every president I can recall toward the end of their campaign did this mass clemency thing with like hundreds of people, right? And he easily could have done that specifically for people who had been arrested on marijuana related charges that were not criminal intent to distribute.
Especially when the white boys making money selling weed legally now.
Right. So, not if charges that were not related to intent to distribute, but just simple possession. So hundreds of thousands of Black men and women could have been freed. Records could have been expunged with a single stroke of a pen.
So I take it that left a certain taste on your mouth. Like, we're pushing for these Black candidates, but what does it really mean? Well, how does it translate into progress
for us
on the block?
And that's what I get back to that point of being early. We talked about alignment, right? Because these candidates, their policies, their perspective has to align with our needs. But by the same token, we have to have, as I said before, as a community, we have to develop leverage, right? Because the fact that we just voters is not enough. As individual voters, you can pull any of these guys up or gals up on the street and say whatever you want to say to them, and they'll nod their head and say, you're right. And they'll ask their assistant to take your phone number, right? Well, y'all done that, here's my card, or here's whoever, get in touch with them. And the call goes into a black hole, and you never hear from these people. So that is critical. And I think it's very critical in the elections that we have coming up. There isn't a gubernatorial election right now or anytime soon. I think we're on solid ground with Wes Moore as far as I'm concerned.
How do you hold yourself accountable? What is the benchmark that you have for yourself so that 4-8 years from now, when you look back, you'll say to yourself, you can look yourself in the mirror and know that you did what nobody else did.
Well, so for one thing, again, this executive order, when I saw that in September, one of the first acts as governor, when he signed that executive order, it said to me, okay, this guy's serious.
He told all of the agency heads back then that you had to come back here with a plan.
Quarterly, they have to report on a quarterly basis what their progress is. And so again, as a business person, his background says, if you're not tracking your progress on a particular goal, right? That's where the breakdown comes. So an example that I'm going to use around, go around that 30% off to 30. I mean, that 29% off to 30 right now for the purposes of my limited math skills this early in the morning. I have not had coffee. So if your goal is 30%, right, in the course of the year, then in the first quarter, you need to have at least gotten 7.5% toward that goal. By the middle of the year, by 6 months out, you need to be at 15%. So we're going to check in the first 90 days, where you at? How close are you to the 7.5? Did you exceed that? Oh, that's great. Are you below the 7.5? What's the problem? Next 90 days come 6 months in, you ought to be at 15%. If you're 15%, you're on track. If you're over 15%, good job, keep it up. If you're below 15%, again, what's the problem? Are you at least at 7.5? Are you at least at 10? Are you at 12, right? Otherwise, you ain't trying. So we don't wait. This again is you think about student in a classroom. We don't wait till you get to the end of the year and say you failed.
You get deficiencies along the way if you don't make the goal.
Correct. So that's one of the things. That's one of the things that I appreciated about the way this was being done, because it's not just, rhetoric. We are going to be checking. There will be reports out, and there's going to be a report released on all these departments for their previous year, so we can see where they were already, right? What have they done already? And then we can now we know who the culprits are, who the problem children are, the ones that really need help, the ones that need a tutor, right?
And need to be fired. So let me ask you this, Mr. Harpool. Mm-hmm. For those out there who don't understand the significance of minority business enterprise certification, what about the bigger picture? As you know, not every Black person is certified, wants to be certified, or have ever been certified. What else can this first Black governor do to spur a spirit of Black Wall Street here in the state of Maryland?
So some of that, I know the work is being done. And again, I'm not working in his administration, so I'm not going to.
What would you like to see? Well, what you would recommend, advise?
One is less complicated process for even starting a business and getting a business legally registered. 2, there could be some tax incentives for people, because the notion that if I have a side, if I have a job now and then I take on this side hustle that creates a new business that could potentially create a job for someone else, I shouldn't be in fear of being penalized for that economically or from a tax perspective. The other is to, and I'm going to have this conversation with the brother, to be honest with you, but when George Floyd was killed, and I'm going to say it like that, now he died, he was killed. We all saw it. When George Floyd was killed, there were a myriad of major corporations around the country. Chief among them were banks and others who made these really lofty pledges of what they're going to do. They created these diversity departments and all this kind of stuff. DNI, is where we learned, but also commitments to make loans for home ownership, for businesses, so on and so forth. No one has held them to task around that. And in fact, a few days ago, and I need to go back and see where that was, but there was about maybe last week this time, or last week Thursday, I heard a very disclosive interview on NPR with a person who was raising that issue and had done a study to show how little of that money is actually ever materialized.
Same thing with Freddie Gray. We watch people come on television collecting a lot of money, and I live here in Sandtown.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see a drop.
Right. So
Black people
asking the governor to create some accountability, and again, this isn't asking him to do something that they didn't already say they were going to do. It's a question of saying, XYZ bank, XYZ company, will you be accountable, right? Because the commitments that you made have the potential of raising the economic state in our community and in our state. One of the things he brought up yesterday, and again, this was not supposed to be a show to, promote West Moore, because trust me, he's got his own vehicle to do that, and he asked me to do that. He did ask.
But we are not going to get your translation
right
elsewhere. That's the beauty.
So this event we did yesterday was an outgrowth of a conversation I had with him. That he signed that thing on a Wednesday, I think it was. I saw him in church at New Shiloh on Sunday, that following Sunday in February. And he said to me, he said, Brother Harpool, I need your help with really helping, getting people to know I'm serious about this, getting the entrepreneurial community engaged and really focused on this, because I can hold these agencies accountable, but I can't press them to make contracts that people don't bid on.
So we do have to be in that MBE sphere, that MBE universe. But I want to take you back. The question is, what else can he do?
So that's one of them. And one of the things was brought up yesterday was about the wealth gap between blacks and whites, and white families or white people are 8 times wealthier than black folks in Maryland. Starting with home ownership. Home ownership is a big one. And again, this entrepreneurial business thing is important too, because we're all going to hit a glass ceiling at some point. We're all going to hit the tipping point in terms of what we can earn as an hourly wage worker. And particularly in an environment that does not, Maryland is a right to work state, right? So we're not necessarily even, unions are not even a big thing here as they were at one time. So the average, worker who is not in a unionized environment has their wages suppressed. We're struggling to get the minimum wage increased, right? And then let alone a living wage. And so we stay in this cycle of poverty because people can't earn enough. A hardworking person that you see out there on the bus stop at 5 a.m, taking 2 buses to get to work, 2 buses to get home, has a half-hour lunch, brought their lunch, doing everything they can to economize and save, still can't make it. And so when oftentimes in American history, our white counterparts get the Homestead Act, you get this type of governmental welfare. I mean, he brought up the GI bill yesterday in that same regard. So point I'm making is that entrepreneurship, that on-ramp to entrepreneurship, does have the potential, one, to raise the individual's income, right? And then not only that, but if they're successful in creating an enterprise that will employ others, now they're bringing other people along with them. Okay. And that's why I'm on this entrepreneurship train. Okay, we got 5 minutes, and I gotta ask you, before you go, this event was held at Bowie State, first HBCU in the state of Maryland, which actually started here in Baltimore, in Prince George's County, yes, which we have historically referred to as the wealthiest black jurisdiction, not only here in the state of Maryland, but quite possibly in the country. Mm-hmm. I know that Angela also Brooks was present. I know that Angela also Brooks, she didn't come. She didn't come. Well, I'm not gonna put it that way. She did not attend. So whatever You know,
Well, and I'm just saying she's running for U.S. Senate.
correct.
This is a huge event.
Correct.
This is an unprecedented event.
Yes.
So now I'm questioning if this young lady understands the significance of MBE / black business to the black agenda of the 30% of the people in the state of Maryland who, along with Baltimore and greater Baltimore, can sway any election. Now I'm concerned. Now I'm seriously concerned. This is in her county?
I'm not aware of what other obligations she may have had for yesterday morning. So
I'm seriously concerned because this is something you noted, that this governor is looking for ways not to be the norm. Because you know, and I know, we don't have to say names, there have been blacks in statewide position who said, I'm not black. That wasn't the case with Governor Moore. But we have heard people in the past say, I'm not black. Like that Tiger Woods thing, I'm Eurasian, black Asian, or whatever. Now I'm concerned, Mr. Harpool. I'm seriously concerned. There is a U.S. Senate race May 14th. I am perplexed.
I duly noted.
If you're not talking about black business and you want to be a black statewide candidate,
well, perhaps her schedule will allow her to participate in the one that we have coming in.
Mr. Harpool, if anything I've heard from you, I've heard a focus on time, that we don't have a lot of time. The urgency. Any final thoughts, Mr. Harpool? Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you had a long day yesterday.
Indeed.
And you talking about going to the gym this morning. I commend you. Well, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Again, elections have consequences. So I'm encouraging your listeners, your viewers to get out and vote, but understand and know who you're voting for and know why you're voting for them.
Damn, I'm just lost now. I could have sworn I heard she was there.
Let me see. And okay, because it was the state's attorney was there.
Aisha Braveboy, and she could very well be the next county executive. See, we had some questions about Prince George's County, just like we have questions about Baltimore. Always making sure that these two majority black jurisdictions keep MBE up front as very important. We hold the white boy accountable. We hold the black boy accountable. We hold everybody accountable for black business. Nobody gets a pass.
True that.
Go Ravens.
Go Ravens.
All right, Mr. Harpool. Big ups again to Ian. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being patient with me. But this right here, like you said, we got to know who we vote for. And big ups to your auntie. No doubt up in Paradise. She put the bug in you. You never told me that story before. We got something fresh today.
How about that?
Thank you again. Good morning, world.
Take care.
Yes, sir.